So I'm just going to put these finishing changes onto the program before we show you what it looks like and demonstrate some features of GUI programming. We're going to look at the string list and the dictionary program again. I had received a message so I'd received a message about some things which may have been missing from the program in a particular video, and where are we going into the form create? Okay, so let's go here. If file exists, now we'll need to put some code into the form destroy so that when the program closes we can save the contents of that of my dictionary to file. Okay, and the last thing we'll do here is we can make sure that our dictionary will remain in sorted order. So we'll save all of those, see if this builds, and we can go from there. Waiting. Okay, so that's built correctly. So what are we doing here? Well, we are revisiting a program from a little while ago which was about building a dictionary in Free Pascal, and the comments that I received told me that I had some things missing from the program. In particular, some error handling, it didn't check for duplicates and so on. So in light of that, what I thought we could do is have a look at that program again, but we're going to start from scratch a little bit and look at ways that things can be done, and let's move that line there. Look at these some of the issues that were raised and basically add some code in to deal with that. So here is the form that we have for this little demo, where basically we just have a word and a definition. So we're using a string list as a list of name value pairs, and then like I said, we've got an add and a delete button, and the delete will delete multiple items now, and the add will actually add an item. Now when we watch this program run now, the first thing you'll notice is that the add button is disabled, and this button will be disabled until we put something into both of the fields. Now we'll just close this program for a moment and go into the code so you can see what's happening here. So with the add button click, well, I should say that when the fields change values, so we're looking at the word and the definition, we will check whether or not the add button should be enabled based on whether all the required fields have been filled in or not. So down the bottom here we can say that we have a complete entry when we have both a word and a definition both having values. If you have the add button always enabled, then what you would have to do is that in the on-click event for the add button, you would have to do some checks to say something like, if the edit word text were empty, then display an error message of some description and then exit. then do the same thing for the definition field. If it was empty, hey, you're missing a definition, exit before you do this last bit of the code here. So by having the button not being enabled until all the required fields have been completed means that you don't have to incorporate additional code to display potential error messages in your program there. So now we only have to deal with the scenario of, well, what happens if the word that we want to add is already in the dictionary. The other comment, which was also the other comment that had been made, was about that it did not allow the user to delete multiple items from the list box. So how we can deal with that then is to in the list box, all we have to do is to say, if I can find it here, multiple, the multi-select property, we just have that set to true. So now a user is able to go select, 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 and then hit the delete button, and then each word will then be removed from the dictionary before displaying it again. So let's look at this code from the beginning so that and see what happens. So when the form is created, first thing we'll do is to disable the add button. Then we are going to create our dictionary as using a string list. Now I will point out here that yes, we are using a string list, but it could be implemented using some sort of dictionary generic unit or template, but we just happen to be using a string list in this instance here. Then what we are going to do is to set the sorted property of the dictionary to true. This is so that we can always have our dictionary in a sorted order, A before B before C. And then what we are going to say is that, well, if we have an existing the contents of an existing dictionary, well, then we are going to load it, that contents into here. And then if we are going to do that, well, then we should also fill our dictionary list. So let's do that function call here. So that's the form create function. So now the opposite action will occur when the program closes, and when the program closes, then all we are going to do is just rewrite the contents of this dictionary into this file here, so that subsequent in the next time it runs, a file will exist and it will be loaded into the list box again. What we also have here is a selection change event handler in the list box, so that when you do click on an item in the list box, the word and its definition will be displayed up there. And the way we can do that is to basically just set the edit word text to be the selected item, and the selected item comes in the item index property of the list box. And because we are looking at name value pairs, the value of that word then goes into the definition then. Here, the next function which we is called where we fill the list box, and basically all we're going to be putting into that list is the name of each item in that pair. And each time we do that, we're also going to clear the list. There are other functions that could be used, and we will have a little look at those in a bit. And we've described this last function before, where we're checking whether or not we have enough information for an entry to be added in. So now we have to look at this function where what happens when we want to add an item into the list box or our dictionary here. So what we're going to basically do is, we know that we get to this function or this code here when both the word and the definition have been completed. So what we will do then is the name part of an item in our dictionary string list, we check whether or not that value is already in the list or not. And if it is in the list, well, what we are going to do is to then ask the user about hey, the word already exists, do you want to update it? We also tell the program here that it's going to be a confirmation dialog. We also want to have yes and no buttons displayed. Forget the help context here. And if the user selects the no option, that we don't want to update, well, then we're just going to exit out and this code here won't happen. But if the user does click the yes button, they do want to update it, well, then it won't exit and this code down here will be run. So what we can put into here, let's start with the word cat, and we can have a definition of something like it's a pet. Yeah. So that gets added in, and like I said, when we click on it, then we can see that the values are updated there. So if we were to change this definition, it's saying it's an antisocial pet now. So now when we click on it, we get that message saying it does exist. Do you want to update it, yes or no? Here we're going to say yes, and operation not allowed on sorted lists. So we have a problem now that we need to correct. Let's break that down, and here is where that error is occurring. So now we've got to work out, well, what do we do to update that? Okay, so now if we want to update it, one way we could achieve this is to and what we'll do is to say L position equals, or is assigned, that, and we can put that value here. And now with this variable, now what we can do is press Control Shift and C, and that will give us a declaration. And here we know that the user will have said yes, so what we can do now is f dictionary dot delete, and we can delete that item so it can now be added back into the list. And let's run this and see what happens. One pet, click on that one there, one pet 2, click on the add, we'll say we're going to update it, and now it's gone back in there, and you can see that it's got our new definition. Let's put in another something wallet. So I've got to click on the add button. So now when we've got two items here, what we can do is if we were to click on the delete button, what it will first of all do is to delete them from the dictionary, and then it will reload or redisplay the remaining items in the list box then. Also, by having the dictionary itself sorted also means that the contents of the list box will always be sorted as well, so we get around that sort of problem. So perhaps some other, tiny little tips or tricks in this little program here to help you out. Number one is the use of constants here. So rather than having to specifically refer to the file that we're looking for, or if we were to have it some specific path to that file as well, by putting it into a constant or having a variable and referring to that variable means that if the file has to change, you don't have to worry about changing in each location. That's the first one. Number two is that to reduce the number of error messages, what we can do is to only enable the buttons, like the add button, when certain criteria has been met, so that the code underneath that button can be executed. So we don't need to test for an empty entry. The next thing here that we're looking at is that we can keep a list sorted by making sure setting the sorted property to true. That's the third thing. The fourth one here, we've got, you can see some code that will load and save, to the file. And then we've also added in some code how we can check whether an item is already in the list before doing something with that. So now when we go and look at, so what we're going to have a very, very quick look at now is a string list itself, and see to show you that we have looked at most of the things of interest in here that we could go into further, or maybe further another time. So if we were to clear a string list, well, that should be rather obvious where we're going to remove every item from it. We're using this delete function when we want to update an item that's already in the list. So that will remove an item from the string list. We can, if you're going to do find an index of, they work on the whole string, whereas we are using index of name here. You can apply some custom sorting functions on a string list itself. You can also tell it what sort or how to handle duplicates. That we're getting to the properties now, actually. What happens when we change an item in the string list, and so on. The other part that we should be aware of is that a string list inherits from the TStrings class, so obviously then anything which is public to the strings class is also accessible, usable as well. And you can see here that what we have is we could use add a pair instead of maybe using values equals name, etc. You also can assign a string list to another string list. You've got functions here where you can apply filters. You've got functions here that act where you can do something for each item in that list. So by way of example, well, I probably couldn't use it on, or maybe I could have used it on the string, on the list box, where you could say something like, for each item, then my callback function would check whether it's selected, and if it was selected, then delete from that other list. We're using this index of name in our program already. Here you've got multiple functions to read from files and streams. You've got some mapping functions and so on. Slices is one we can always look at another time. If you wanted to use delimited, if you were to go from a string into delimited text, well, that's where these sort of properties come into place, and they've got a whole bunch more down here to consider. As I said, using a string list for a dictionary is only one way, and I hope from this video you've got a better appreciation of the functionality that can be achieved through string lists, and also a little bit more and some other tips and tricks along the way to help with your programming. And until next time, happy coding. I'll see you then. Bye.